tech expert and analyst from Kansas City. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you. To begin with, what is your take on the proposed ban? The Biden administration has given TikTok an ultimatum demanding TikTok's owners divest their stakes in the popular video app or face a possible ban.
Well, I don't think that it will go through. Number one, TikTok is such a popular app here in the U.S. that it will take a lot for the government to just ban it completely across the country. And there's several things that you have to look at. Number one, you have to look at what happened with President Trump when he tried to ban the app back in 2018, 2019, and it wasn't successful at all. The other thing you have to look at, too, is First Amendment rights in the U.S. It would be difficult for the government to try to ban TikTok, because it would disrupt First Amendment rights. I mean, there's no way that a social media app could be banned because that would limit freedom of speech as far as Americans are concerned.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, I will come to that in just a minute. But before that, how do you assess the national security and the privacy threats that have been attributed to TikTok?
Well, it's interesting because the challenge is that TikTok or ByteDance, the company that's based out of China, can fall under the rule of China, the Chinese government, as far as them being able to access information at any time. In China, the government can just intercede at any time and get information. But TikTok claims that that information is actually being handled by Oracle and that it's stored in the U.S. So I can understand the U.S. stance that you don't want user data to wind up in the hands of the Chinese government. But at the same time, if it's being stored on U.S. soil, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Right, absolutely. In fact, the TikTok CEO has denied these claims as well. Now, coming back to a point that you made earlier, for those who are contesting this, the First Amendment, as you mentioned, has been brought up here. What's your take?
Well, I mean, obviously they have to honor First Amendment rights. So, I mean, I just don't see the app going away anytime soon because there really hasn't been any substantial proof that the Chinese government has been spying on TikTok. I think the only thing that TikTok is guilty of, like other social media apps, is the fact that they are using users' data in order to sell that, in order to get advertisers a better idea what their users want.
Right. Now, of course, the CEO of TikTok faced hours of relentless questioning, claims that the parent company is not controlled by the Chinese government, but he did acknowledge that some personal data of Americans was still subject to Chinese law. Now, what can you tell us of the implications of this?
Well, I mean, again, it goes down to user data and what the Chinese government can do at any time. So again, if a company is operating out of China, the government under communist rule can just come in at any time and access or request that data. But I mean, TikTok's not the only technology that is at risk being based out of China. There are plenty of tech companies that the Chinese government is spying on. And it's interesting that here in the U.S., I think the part of it is the Chinese government possibly gathering information on American citizens. But at the same time, I think the other challenge that TikTok is facing is the inappropriate material that is appearing on the social media app.
Right. In fact, just to elaborate on this was in fact my next question. Seeing the kind of trouble TikTok has found itself in, many companies, they're now distancing themselves from their Chinese roots by setting up headquarters in California or New York, hiring American staff, storing user data not on Chinese servers. How effective a strategy do you think this will prove to be?
I think it's a good strategy to store the information outside of China because, like TikTok stated, or the CEO stated, that with that information on U.S. soil, they can set up firewalls and have that information on secured servers where the Chinese government can't get in and get that information. Now, as far as Congress is concerned, that may not be enough to ensure that not all of the servers are based in China. And that's kind of a secret thing that TikTok has to adhere to. And there's really no way that they can prove that their servers aren't all on U.S. soil and that some may be still over in China.
All right. Now, of course, if a ban does go through, this would cut off the country's 150 million monthly users from an app that's of course, become a cultural powerhouse, especially for the youth. Many Gen Z users, they seem unfazed by such reports of security breaches or data threats. How do you assess the content that's shared on TikTok and TikTok's popularity among the youth?
Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, TikTok is almost up there with Facebook as far as popularity is concerned. But the interesting thing that could happen with TikTok is what happens over in China. If people want to get access to TikTok, they could use VPN services in order to download and use the app. And then, at least 150 million users across the U.S. will still have access to it. It would take for both the Google App Store and the Apple App Store to remove it for people not to have access to it anymore.
Right. And when it comes to data privacy, would you say there are some frameworks that apps like TikTok could introduce to ensure the same?
There is, but with an app with that many users, and that's not even the ones that are counting, it's kind of hard to block everyone. I mean, I think the only thing that TikTok could do is set up standards like Facebook has. Not that Facebook is perfect, but at the same time, they need to be a little bit more stringent as far as the data security and other practices that they need to put in place to ensure that at least the app is a little bit safer than it is right now.
Right. Now, as per some reports and analysis, American technology giants could grab on some $431 billion in market revenue if the United States does ban TikTok. Do you think if Meta, Alphabet, Snap come up with a similar model, they'd be able to capitalize if a ban is at all imposed?
Oh, definitely. If TikTok, Meta and Snap already have platforms that operate like TikTok. So if TikTok goes away, all they have to do is just do a little bit of advertising, and then their TikTok-like features that, like Reels and other things that are built into Meta, can definitely take over and rule the marketplace.
Right. Now, that being said, TikTok, of course, has given a platform to many young influencers. TikTok is how they've been able to amass followers, make a living, essentially. How paralyzing would a ban, do you reckon, would be on many popular and budding social media influencers as well?
It would be, it depends. Now, if you have influencers that only exclusively use TikTok, then it would be devastating. But a lot of influencers are quite resourceful, and they use different social media platforms in order to continue to be influencers. So they could turn to Snap, they could turn to Instagram and use Reels and not really feel the impact of the loss of TikTok.
Right. Now, there are those who've been protesting an outright ban as well, of course, as you know. As per some accounts, the belief is that TikTok would find a way to stay, or some cooperation or the other would buy them out. How likely do you think that is?
I think it's going to be pretty likely. I mean, TikTok is making too much money right now. So, I mean, at this point, they would do anything to make sure that the social media app is going to stay around.
All right. Well, Mr. Burton, Kelso, thank you so much for joining us with your insights on this.
Thank you for having me.
WION is now available in